Actually, this does bring peace. It's like this holding it like this is supposed to be like calmness, like with the fingers like that. And it's like immediately I'm calm. It's crazy.
Mm, okay. All right. We're ready to start. Hi, everyone. Today we have my good friend Adrian Daryanani with us. I've known Adrian since 2017 while we were both in the real estate industry. I've watched him go through many ups and downs, and he has a really inspiring story, his sobriety journey to be exact. And I'm so excited that he's here today to share it with us. Thanks, Adrian, for being with us. Thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's start by going into your childhood and what you've been through, what you've gone through, and how that made you who you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be glad to. So I'm actually the child of two immigrants. My dad is from India and my mom is from the Philippines. And they got married and they came to the United States originally for their honeymoon and they decided to stay. And they went to Disneyland in LA and then my sister was born there. I was born and my brother was born there and we just stayed in LA. And childhood was very interesting, especially being in that part of LA that we were in. A lot of gunshots at night, very scary and unsafe neighborhood. And we had to make some kind of moves and relocate. It's been an interesting journey coming through because the developmental stage as a child growing up, it's so huge. You know, I grew up with a lot of anger and a lot of violence in my childhood. My parents doing the best that they could with what they knew. So I can only empathize and imagine like what it was like for them as children when they were raised. But for me, there was a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty and it kind of helped shape me. But you know, I constantly was on the move. Moved from LA to the Bay Area when I was 8 years old. Lived in San Jose for a short period of time, and then shortly after that, ended up moving to the Philippines. So I was constantly in a different school, in a different environment, having to learn how to be a chameleon, to be something for someone else, so I can survive. And that was a challenge, getting to meet new friends and then lose these friends and then having to have that energy again to go and meet new friends and then losing them again, and just the constant movement. And it was unsettling. It really taught me how to act a certain way and to be a certain way. Not to mention I'm a middle child, so you know, my sister got a lot of attention from my parents in a good way, and they did a lot for her. And my younger brother got a lot of attention as well. And I was just somewhere in between, just floating around.
Yeah. And so, how has that shaped your relationships with your friends, your family, your children today?
You know, I never really understood how it shaped that, but I felt very alone as a child. Even though I had a lot of people around me, I noticed that what I was doing ever since childhood because of survival is I was trying to find replacements in my life, a replacement for a mother figure, a replacement for a father figure, a replacement for a sister figure, a replacement for a brother figure. So I had a lot of other, you know, guy friends who I would hang around with, and I would look at them and I would call on them like brothers. And even to this day, I still use that word brother when I talk about my friends. I had a lot of female friends that I was looking at replacing my sister with because I never really truly felt like, you know, my sister had my back or was there for me. I felt very abandoned. Like my mom did the best that she could too, and she was always there for me. But at the same time, my mom was also doing her own thing, you know, out of survival. And my dad, he worked all the time. Like, you know, he wasn't like an alcoholic or anything like that, but my dad was definitely a workaholic and a rageaholic. And he had a lot of that in him. So, you know, it's like when I did see him, it was like, okay, who am I getting? Right? Am I getting the cool, chill, happy dad who wants to wrestle with me and like, you know, we're having that type of environment? Or am I getting the disciplinary dad where it's like everything is too loud and he needs to focus in because he's got to pay attention to business? I had to learn how to walk on eggshells at a young age.
So, how has that shaped who you are today? Because I've seen you gone through a lot.
Yeah,
And I do know that you had some rage in the past too, right?
yeah,
Do you think that came from your dad and what you saw when you were growing up with him?
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I didn't know how to deal with my anger. I didn't know how to deal with the different forms of emotions that were coming up. Because as I started to go through this just sober journey, but also life changing journey altogether, I realized that anger is just one of the feelings on the surface level of it all. There's deeper feelings behind underneath it. A lot of it is fear and anxiety
Mm-hmm.
based, right? And it's the fear of not feeling like I'm enough for people, the fear of, I'm falling short, or the fear of just lack, or the fear of abandonment. Like all those fears would come up, and how it ended up shaping me is it manifested in all the different types of relationships I ended up in, looking for them to be a replacement of the chaos that I grew up in without even realizing it. I think now, as I'm going through, therapy and working a different program called ACA right now, which is another great 12-step program, I'm learning about how I was raised and how it's shaped everything that I do today. The people I have, the friends I have, right?
So,
The time that I keep them in my life.
so let's go back to your sobriety journey.
Yeah,
Let's dive deep
yeah.
and let's talk about your deepest, darkest times. Like, what did that look like when you were using substances to cover up the pain or mask everything else you were feeling inside? Walk us through that journey. How did that look at that time when it was really dark?
It was like, at first it was like fun, right? I used to go out, I used to be able to drink and party and everything like that with friends, and it was fun, like in my early 20s and stuff. And then the problems started coming in my life. I was really young. I had my first son when I was only 24 years old, and I had a very toxic relationship with his mom. She had a lot of stuff that was going on that I just wasn't prepared for or equipped for to handle. I didn't know how to handle that situation. And it was unfortunate. Things didn't work out. Things weren't working out. We were in an on and off relationship for 3 years. And in my mind, I thought, okay, you go, you get married, you have kids, you buy the house, you get the white picket fence and everything else like that. And I had this expectation and this idea of what things are supposed to be like. And then when they don't end up that way, it's like, how do you deal with life without these expectations? And when everything went crumbling down, I just got deeper into work, because that's what I was taught. Just work. Like, you got problems and issues, work. You got problems and issues, just drink your problems away. Like all my friends, they did their best too. But it's like, man, it's like, dude, just have a drink, right? And I just remember when things crashed for me at 20, 24 years old, I hid, I isolated, I would go to work, I would come home, I would drink, and then I would smoke weed. And I would self medicate until I'd go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would do it all over again. And then for a while, that was going on, it just became a really unhealthy way to deal with it. And I didn't know any other way. And then the other unhealthy, toxic way is jumping in and out of relationships. So immediately after that relationship ends, 4 to 5 months later, not even 6 months later, I'm getting into a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned is, in the disease of addiction, you don't have relationships. You take prisoners and you take hostages.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's kind of what it was like. My ex-wife was a really great person, and I just wasn't mentally prepared and ready yet. But the relationship felt great. Got my mind off of my ex. I got to move forward. She was a great human being. She was my drinking buddy and my smoking buddy too. She had her own stuff going on. I had my own stuff going on. And then that just continued to go and go and go. But I never took care of the root issues, the deeper issues inside. I thought to myself, if the outsides look good, then everything else on the inside will be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was up until I was 37 years old, right around the time when we met.
Mm-hmm.
Things started hitting a wall for me again. I started showing early signs and developing signs of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
This is after being married now. This is after having 2 kids with her. This is after like winning full custody of my eldest son. Like, a lot of good things were going on in my life, but still none of that was enough for me to want to stop drinking or stop using. And then all of a sudden, just things got really bad. Like, I thought to myself, well, shoot, I got cancer. I'm going to die. I'm not going to put my family through financial struggle or ruin. So I'm going to live my life the way that I see fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a severe lack of God in my life and a sense of a higher power in my life. I had a different form of religion that was going on for myself, and it was called Adrianism. Yeah. The belief that whatever Adrian did was right, because it got me out of a lot of trouble. It got me out of a lot of problems. It got me through a lot of things. But I made myself my own God, and that was very, very bad. Because anytime things went wrong, I would blame God. Like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you punishing me? And then when things went right, I was like, yay, me. Tap myself on the back. Good job, Adrian. You did it. Right? And when it came to that part and I thought, geez, I'm going to die, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to live the life that I want to live, and I'm going to go out the way that I want to go out. And it's very selfish because, again, I took hostages. I didn't think about my wife at the time. I didn't think about my kids. I didn't care to think about what my parents or my family thought about it. And it just kept on going. And then 2 years later, one of my best friends dies. Like, and this was like a guy who was really, really close to me. And I just didn't know how to deal. I just continued to drink more and use more and hide down and shove down all of that pain, that sadness, that depression, and just bury it down that way. And it was coming up in a much different way. And, I don't blame my wife. She couldn't handle it anymore.
What was the turning point where you're like, I can't do this anymore and I need to go on this sober journey?
Yeah, God had to do for me what I couldn't do for myself. He had to remove everything from my life. I lost my wife. I lost my kids. I lost my house. I lost everything. The only thing that I was still doing at that time is I was seeing a therapist. And, therapy only works if you're sober. I went to a lot of these therapy sessions, either coming back from a hangover or leaving because the emotions were too deep that I went to go get drunk, right? And that was a tough way to live life. And she was the only one I felt who really cared about me. And it was right around COVID, and we were, having our meetings on Zoom and everything like that. And she could see that things were really bad for me. And she just said, listen, if you don't check yourself into a rehab center, she's like, I'm going to have to call the cops, and I'm going to have to 5150 you because you're a danger to yourself and you're a danger to people around you. Mm. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'll do that. And I reached out and I got the help that I needed, and I got myself into a recovery program and a recovery center.
So what was it that kept you in the recovery program, the recovery center? Was it the people? Was it your mindset? What was it? Because I know a lot of people who's gone through this, but they relapse, right? They go back into what is known. They go back into using, back into drinking, all of that. So what was it for you that kept you along this path and decided I am not going to relapse?
Well, I knew that when I got to that rehab center, I knew that if I just did the 30-day program, I was going to go right back to hanging out with all my old friends. And it was only going to be a matter of time until I started drinking or using again. And the good thing about this rehab center is they had a second part of it, which was like a men's housing that I could stay at and I could go to work. And it gave me a sense of structure again. So I stayed in that program for another 60 days. So altogether, I removed myself out of all of my communities for a good 90 days. And within those 90 days, not only was I working a program of there, but I was also working a program of recovery through AA. I got introduced to that. I never knew about these types of programs. Being Asian American, none of this stuff was ever taught to me. I didn't grow up with this manual of life of how to live life. And I didn't know that these programs existed. I thought that these programs cost a lot of money and, and all this other stuff. You hear about it on the movies like Betty Ford and all this other stuff. And you think, only rich people and people of means can afford to get well and get right. Everyone else just has to drink their life away. And that wasn't necessarily the case. It was another built-in excuse. So I had went and started going to meetings, and I did 90 meetings in 90 days. Every single day I would go and make sure that I would go hit a meeting. And again, this was COVID. So there were meetings I was going to that were outside in the open. I heard a lot of people that were vulnerable and that shared. And when I got there, I really said to myself, I've been putting everybody else first. And I'm 40 years old now at this point in time. When am I ever going to start putting myself first?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I didn't know anybody around me, nor did I care. And I put myself first, and I started openly sharing about my story. I started sharing how I felt, things that were coming up for me. All these things where I felt like I was isolated and alone. And I started to realize I wasn't alone.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of other people that shared the same exact story as myself. I wasn't unique. I wasn't, this wasn't an isolated experience. And to know that I wasn't alone, and to know that I found a group of people who didn't look like me, didn't dress like me, didn't walk the same walk I did, didn't have the same financial background or structure or anything else like that, that everyone came from all different walks of life, and I could hear my story in them. I was like, wow, okay, there's something that's going on here. And then I just said, you know what? Everything that I thought that I was doing that was right really wasn't working out. So I'm going to start to listen. And I got myself a sponsor, started taking the suggestions, and just started working. Is that it? It's that simple.
Sounds like there were a few very important points that you touched on.
Yeah.
One, getting yourself out of your environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they always say you are the net worth of the 5 people that you hang out with, right?
Yeah.
Same thing when it comes to your environment. You are
A product of your
exactly,
environment,
you
right?
are a product of your environment.
Yeah.
So that piece is very important, getting yourself out of that environment, because like you said, everyone that you were hanging out with at that time, they were doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
They were also broken. They were also feeling like they wanted to mask the pain with all these substances. So taking yourself out of that is very important.
Yeah, it's like that's the hard thing, and I had to come to a realization too. And the thing is, everything that happened in my life happened for a reason, and it happened the way that it was supposed to happen. And the people that were there in my life when I was heavily drinking and using and everything else like that, they did serve a purpose. They were really there for me. I think that they did care for me, and they were probably going through their own set of problems too. But that was something that we all had in common that drew us together, is that we all, in our own way, shape, and form, had our own stuff that was going on. But we can all get together. And then for that moment in time when we're together, none of it mattered. Right. And that's the thing. Like, when I used to drink and hang out and everything else like that and party, I had a group of people around me that I felt that got me, because that's where I was at. Right. And it served a purpose. Because with all the chaos and madness in my world, for those moments in time, it was good. But I was doing it all backwards, and I was doing it in an unhealthy manner. I was doing all that stuff late at night while I was married. I had a wife at home, kids at home, people who were relying on me, waiting for me. I wasn't being honest with myself and being the type of person that I wanted to be for them. And I couldn't at that point in time. So I am truly grateful that things ended up the way they did, and I found my rock bottom at when I found it, and I didn't keep digging.
Right.
Because your rock bottom and your low is whenever you decide to stop digging. Some people talk about having a low bottom or a high bottom or anything like that. It's when you decide to stop causing the chaos in your own life, and it doesn't have to go that far. Now, could my situation have gone further? Absolutely. It could have been bad. Jails, institutions, death, right? Really simple. And that didn't necessarily have to be my story. My test in life turned into my testimony in life. Cirrhosis of the liver is real. The disease of addiction and alcoholism is a real thing. So many people die every day from it. And it's something that we just don't really look at as a society. It just numbs the pain, and it numbs the inside, and it numbs your soul. And when I hit that bottom for myself, it was ugly. It was really ugly. And I got to become a person that I never ever wanted to be in my life. And I thought to myself, the first thing I thought to myself were my children. Like, is this what they want to see their father as? Like, if I died, would my kids be proud of the person that I was? Or would I just end up causing them a life of pain, anxiety, and anguish and just mess them up? And I knew that I had to break the generational cycle of trauma.
That's what I was going to say, that cycle. Yeah.
That cycle of trauma, that generational trauma, and it had to stop with me. Mm-hmm. So I had to do something about it. And now today, I mean, with everything that I went through, I mean, in 2 months, God willing, it'll be 5 years that I've been sober.
Wow,
5 years that I've been sober, and I've been through this journey. And the moment I started, and when I started working on that, you know, everybody else around you can see you, and they can say, oh, you know, like, I know who you are, and et cetera, et cetera. Your children, if you have kids, they know who you are. Right. They really know who you are. If you go up to my kids and you ask my kids about me and who I am, they're going to say today, I'm a man of integrity. I'm a man of principles. I do the right thing. I say what I say. I mean what I say, but I don't say it mean. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm able to walk a different path now, and it's because of all these different programs. You know, my first 2 years, I got into AA, and I had to, you know, get through the steps, and I had to work on me. And when I finally felt the relief of the bondage of self, right? The relief of wanting to pick up and drink, you know, to be able to go out, be at bars and everything like that, and just not have the obsession to want to drink and join in and just enjoy my time and walk away when I want to walk away, felt good. And it got me to that point. And then through my journey, after that part right there was another program that I got in, which was a sister program, which helped me get a better gauge and understanding of how my disease affected the people around me. Mm-hmm. And when I started getting into that program and started to go to those meetings and start to listen to these people in these meetings, I heard my mom's voice. I heard my sister's voice. I heard my ex-wife's voice. I heard my brother's voice. I heard my dad's voice. I heard the voices of all the people around me that my disease of addiction had affected and hurt. Mm. And it gave me a larger sense of empathy, patience, and understanding. And when I started to get that understanding, what I started to learn in that program was this word that I've always heard thrown around: codependence. Mm. And I was like, wow, I need to look into that. And I started getting into that program, and I started doing some work around that. And I found a counselor that specializes in codependence, and I've been working with her. And I'll tell you something, it's like the codependence came from the childhood and everything else like that. So when I started to see that through codependency, that a lot of these notions and the way that I was towards other people and the need that I have of other people to need me, to feel needed and wanted, to feel accepted, to feel loved, and the need to want to like overdo and give myself and overexert myself for people, because if I don't, then they won't love me for who I am. Right. Like when I started to realize that all of that stemmed from childhood stuff, that's when I got into this other program, which is called ACA. It's Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. Mm. I needed to get down to the grassroots, to the base roots of where it all started, where it began. Yes. And when you can see that early childhood development is so crucial and so key, I needed to unwind that. So the only way I can equate it is like, it's like a big ball of yarn, right? You have this big ball of yarn, and all the strings just like, it's all meshed up in there and everything like that. And when I started to do the work in this program and go to the meetings in this program, I started feeling like it was unraveling a little bit, and the strings became loose. And then there just became better connections to things inside. Yeah.
And so I also heard you say that it made you feel more at home when you started hearing about everybody else's stories too. Mm-hmm. But I find that to be very comforting as well. When I was going through my dark times, when I started talking to other people and hearing that they were going through similar struggles, it made me feel not alone. Mm-hmm. And that is the very important piece that you touched upon. And like you said, you went into this program, everybody was so different, but at the same time, you had the same stories, and you were able to find your story in them as well. And there was that connection. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that for people who are going through that now and they don't know how to take that step, right? Like, how would you frame it, or what would you say to these individuals that are looking to get out of it now and they're exploring a group like the one that you went to?
You're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. everybody's walking through something. Everyone has something that's hard that's going on for them right now in their life, whether it be family, whether it be work, romances and finances. The weight of the world is always on our shoulders, and we think that we have to be responsible for carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, and absolutely we don't. There are groups that are out there that care about you, and I'll tell you something. When I first got into that program, I was like, why is everybody so nice? Why is everybody so cheerful? Why is everybody so happy to see me? I was like, ew, get away from me. Like, what is going on here? And it was amazing. It was like nobody wanted anything more for me but to see me okay. And I thought that that was just wild, because I grew up in a way that was like, you want something from me.
Right.
Why are you being so nice to me? Like, do you need money? What is it? Do I have to do something for you later on? Do I have to wash your car? Like,
Exactly.
but it wasn't. It's like there was a group of people that just wanted to see me right and stay sober.
Yeah.
And I was going to these meetings, and these people had a spark in their eye. They were smiling. They were hugging. And I was like, wow. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, I kind of like that. I want what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was home.
You know, like touching upon that, I was going to say too that I think what it is now as we're adults is sitting alone and being by ourselves is very scary. Like you're scared to be alone. That's really what it comes down to. And a lot of times when I look back on my childhood, because you know how I grew up too, bunch of trauma, and I'm starting to unravel it, like you said. And many times I think back and I look inside myself and I see a little girl. I see that childhood. I see that child inside sitting there alone, craving for attention, wanting love.
Well, there's a difference, right? Because there's sitting alone, being by yourself in solitude, which means that you're in deep reflection and you're okay.
Right.
You're safe, right? And then there's isolation, which is different. That's the fear and the anxiety. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. I'm just here by myself. I don't want to see anyone. Like, I'm going through it and you're imploding inside.
I feel like when people feel that, the latter, that's where substances come out.
Exactly.
Right? And when it's the first part that you said, right, about how it's
where you're in solitude.
Yeah, when you're in solitude and you're just analyzing your thoughts, kind of like meditation, right?
You're more mindful.
Yes,
right?
When you're more mindful, I think in that sense it's good, right?
Yeah.
That's when there's a lot of positivity that comes with it.
Yeah, there's creativity, positivity, everything else like that. When you're in solitude, you could be in meditation. Your mind is in a good state and place. You're just kind of moving around and doing what you need to do for you.
Right.
And not live by the chains of the demands of everybody else, because we all have a master, right? We all have people that need us, right? Kids, family, work. But can we like graciously cut ourselves from that and like kind of just be able to sit with ourselves, to get back with ourselves and be like, you know what? I need a mental day today. Today, I'm just going to put myself on timeout. You know, it's okay. Everyone else can kind of do what they need to do, but I need this for me today.
Exactly.
Right. And find those moments of time where you can give yourself that. I think
where
that
you
that's
can
positive.
recover.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very important, the recovery process.
It's so important, because I always saw myself as this extroverted person. I'm extremely extroverted. I am a people person. I love people. I get energy, good energy from being around people. And I always thought that that's just me. I'm just an extroverted person, right? But it became extroverted to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm just being a people pleaser.
Right.
Now I'm going out there, and because this is the person that they saw, this is who they get. Oh my God, he's here to entertain us. Like it's all this stuff. And it's like, no, I did not have to be that person for everyone.
So going back to the people pleaser piece, because when you were talking about your childhood earlier, I automatically, something in my head clicked and I was like, that's the people pleaser piece that comes with the childhood trauma and abandonment and all that.
All of that.
I mean, I know we're not doctors or psychologists, but I want to talk a bit about that. Like, do you feel like you were a people pleaser?
Oh, absolutely. 110%. You know, it's like I wanted to please my mom, you know, like I always saw her working hard. She's always washing the dishes and doing everything else like that. So I would come on in, you know, let me go help her out over there. You know, my dad had things going on. He needed help. I'll be the first one out there. Let me go people please him. Because, you know, if I can show you that I'm doing all these things, then maybe you'll cut me some slack and maybe I won't get in so much trouble because my grades are bad. Right? I had a real tough time. Like, you know, like I had a lot of stuff going on. I had dyslexia as a kid. I probably still do. I had ADD growing up that was undiagnosed, not until I was an adult. There was a lot of these things that were going on. Like my brother and sister could roll out of bed and they were perfectly fine. They can get straight A's. They can get good grades. And then here's Adrian. He's the dumb one. He's just a dumb jock. He's really athletic, but he's not smart. Don't count on him for anything like that. And it wasn't that I wasn't smart, but it was that narrative that I kept hearing over and over and over. You're not smart. You're not good. You're not good enough.
Where did the narrative come from?
Oh, parents.
Parents.
Absolutely.
So did your parents actually say that verbally to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of verbal abuse growing up. A lot of physical abuse that led because of that stuff too.
Yeah, because now I'm in early childhood development, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I love asking people like, how did you grow up? How were you raised? Because that really determines who you become. 0 to 5 years of age is the most important years of a child's life.
So crucial.
Yeah. And so for you to have gone through all this verbal abuse, not feeling like you're good enough, it relates to the way that your parents treated you.
Yeah. And it's so important. It's like if there's any message I can give, it's like love your kids, right? You don't have to buy them everything. You don't have to give them everything and do all that stuff. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that, but it's like, build up positivity in their life. Like you're going to go to school today, you're going to have a great day today, you're going to kill it, you're going to crush it, you're going to do amazing. And when something goes wrong, don't jump to this conclusion of like, oh, you're just a bad kid. Like, what'd I do? Oh, you're like your mom, you're like your dad. Like, it's like, and start to pivot and blame and then take all these negative aspects. And now all of a sudden these kids are looking at their parents like,
Yeah. I think it goes back to yourself though. Like you have to fill your own cup before you can fill others. And the thing is, being a parent is not easy. A lot of people are first time parents and they're learning along the way too, right?
Exactly.
And it's a lot of times it's not their fault. Again, it's generational trauma. It's the cycle. So it starts with us. Like we have to break the cycle so that it does not keep continuing.
Absolutely. And that's why I keep on saying my parents did the best that they could with what they knew. Right. It was a different generation. Like, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. There just wasn't as much or as open access to information back then, right? And that's why this generation where we're at right now, there really is no excuse with the technological advances that we have and, everything at our fingertips. I mean, it's not even just like, oh, let me go to Google and search something and find something. You can even ask AI, and AI will tell you like what you need to know. So there really isn't an excuse unless you just choose that you want to be there. And then now that becomes a choice. And that choice that you're making, you have to be very, very, very intentional about the choices you decide to make in your life, because the choices you make are going to affect long lasting terms around other people. So it's very crucial. And in all these programs, I mean, except for therapy, but I mean, all this stuff was free 99. Just show up. Just show up for yourself. There's so many 12-step programs that are available at your fingertips. There's Overeaters Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, all other forms of 12-step programs of recovery that are all there. And they all stem from this book right here.
If you were to go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
That you're a good kid. That you're smart. That you're powerful. That you're okay.
Is that the Adrian today?
That's the Adrian I'm working towards. It still takes a lot of work. It's like, it took years of all of that to make me what I was. And it's going to take years to kind of unravel that. It doesn't just happen overnight. So understanding that it's a process is good. But if I can become 1% better every single day since, from where it all started and where it was from, then I can be happy with that. And I really do feel that, I feel like I'm headed in the right direction. Now, it's not perfect, but it's all still working towards that. And I think I'm getting there.
This is perfect because my next question is, what's next for you?
What's next? I mean, continuing the work, not just taking in the work for myself, but helping others. I think that that's another thing too. It's like realizing that, I've been so blessed and I got all of this stuff and it didn't cost me anything. And so many people were involved with helping me get to this point in my life that it does me no good just to hold on to this. So if I can give back and help others, whether it's speaking at meetings, working with other men in the program, sharing my story, being a beacon of light without, making it feel like I'm like patting myself on the back or anything else like that, but sharing the story of experience, strength, and hope, and knowing that you're not alone. Like everybody else is going through something inside. I think people need to hear it. And my story is one of many stories. And if my story doesn't resonate with you, that's fine too. And I could be okay with that. But my story might be out there for someone else who could really use it. And hopefully they hear it, and hopefully they'll be willing to take steps in the right direction, and want to, improve their life and do something about it.
So your habits and your routines shapes who you are, who you become, the whole bundle of it. So, Adrian, what are your habits and routines like now?
Yeah. I'm actually glad that you're asking that too, because I started to develop these habits early on when I started my sober journey, and I realized that I needed a morning routine, and it stuck with me since. So every day when I wake up, I first thing I do is I meditate for like 10 to 15 minutes. I meditate. I clear the mind, especially when I'm in that initial first waking up state. And then the next thing I do is I pray. There's a set of prayers that I pray, and I pray about, like, my character defects, and pray that I can focus on those in my day to not allow it to take over, and lead me down a path of fear, anxiety, and worry, right? And then after I pray, I write a gratitude list, and I share this gratitude list with a couple of people in my life, and I receive gratitude lists back, which are great because it reminds me that there's so much in life to be grateful for. And then I get ready and I go and I hit the gym. Mm. I needed to learn how to give back to myself first at the beginning of my day, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, give back to myself first. Because if I could start my day like that, then it's much easier for me to give myself wholly to all the people around me, to be present for my kids when I'm with them, to be an animal at work and work really hard, be present in relationships and friendships and everything else I need to do. I could give a better version of myself. Now, it may not always come out perfect, but I need to start with that base. Mm-hmm. And before I wasn't doing that, I was waking up in the morning, I was getting up, getting ready, and then I was out the door. And I was just giving myself to everyone. And then by the time nighttime came and I can give back to myself, I was mad, I was irritated, I was in all types of ways. And then I would go out and abuse myself. So I had it all backwards. And when I was able to flip this around and give myself that kind of a morning routine, oh, life changer. And I noticed that when I don't stick to my morning routine, how fast my day goes away. Mm-hmm. Like how everything just falls off the rails and I go back to being irritable, restless, and discontent in my life. I've created enough tools in this bag. I've been carrying this heavy bag around with me my entire life of pain, struggle, everything else. And what I've been able to do through this journey is I've been able to take these things out of this bag, and it's like taking boulders off of my life, and I was able to stand taller and stand more comfortable. But in the bag now, I'm able to replace it with all of these other good habits and things and tools I can make use of nowadays to help keep me centered and right. So I'm not just losing, I'm sorry, so I was just losing my stuff, right? And it's beautiful because even when I get a day like that, where everything doesn't work out because I didn't fall into my set of routines, it's okay, Adrian. You're all right. Tomorrow's another day. Maybe it was just 10, 15 minutes that was a bad part of your day. And now I have more clarity. Okay, my full 24 hours was bad. 20 minutes my day was bad. And it gives me perspective. And then when I can have that perspective, I was like, I can sit down, I can relax. And I can just be more calm with myself and forgive myself and show myself some grace. And something that my sponsor always shares with me, and I share this a lot now, is that, today is let everybody off the hook day, including yourself. And if I can let everybody off the hook and be okay with it, and I can let myself off the hook, it's like, wow, okay, cool. I can decompress. And then I just get back to me.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Morning routines are very important.
So crucial.
Yeah, there's actually studies that show people who meditate and pray regularly.
There's links to, having successful and productive lives when you have a set of morning routines.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
And I mean, it's true. It's like when you can wake up in the morning and pray and have mindfulness and meditation, and it just opens up the heart and the mind and the soul. When things come up and someone cuts you off in traffic, you'd be like, they probably are really busy.
Right.
They probably got to get somewhere. Now you're not just driving, chasing them down, trying to find their license plate to go tell them what a bad driver they are, right?
Yeah, it keeps you connected.
It
like
keeps you so
everything
connected.
is just connected in one, and it keeps you grounded and just whole, and you're calm and you're at peace.
There's a book that said, don't sweat the small things, right? And like those small things, when they come up, it's like it's easier just to let it roll off my shoulder, right? And not allow it to affect me and like consume me, and then let it just like dominate and take over. A lot of the people that I admire, that I look up to in the business world, that are truly very successful, either entrepreneurs or just in any shape and form in their life, they have a morning routine. and and they have a higher connection with their higher power, whatever that higher power might look like, whether it be God, Jesus, Allah, the Prophet Muhammad, Krishna, the Buddha, the Dalai Lama, whatever it is, whatever the deity is. Could be the ocean, could be the sun. As long as you know that you're not God, you're not the one running the show, that there is a higher power that has more control over everything, and you can learn how to let go, your world just becomes so much more open and such a bigger place.
That's what I always say. You can only control what you can control, right? Yeah. There's so many things that are out of our control. And if the only thing we can control is ourselves, right? Yeah. And our feelings, our emotions, our mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to have so much control before over everything, over my family, work, everything, the way that my life was going. And I had such a tight grip, and I was like holding on to everything. Right. Like my world continued to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just tried to hold on to everything. And then one day the final part fell in, and it snapped, and it let go. And I thought I lost everything when I let go. And what I realized is, by letting go, I didn't have to carry all of it anymore. Everyone's going to be who they are, and they're still going to love me for who I am.
Yeah, exactly. And that there is a path for you. There's a path for everyone.
Yeah.
All right, Adrian, what would you like to share with all of the viewers who are watching today?
I think what I'd like to share with all of your viewers, Ashley, and again, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be on your program today. But what I would like to share is that, again, you're not alone. You are loved. There are so many programs that are out there to help you. If you ever need help and you're watching and you're following Ashley closely, reach out to her and let her know that you'd like to get in contact with me. I'd be glad to share with you all the resources that have came my direction. And yeah, just be kinder to yourself. Love yourself. It's okay to give yourself a hug and tell your inner child that you're good and that everything's going to be okay.
And I do have to also add that you've been an inspiration for me as well. I've been 5 months sober and I plan to continue this journey, and watching you has just been such an inspiration. So thank you as well.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And for all the viewers, thank you for watching. He has an
inspiring, not expiring. I'm still alive.